I was a latecomer to GPT. You need to pay attention to this new transformer architecture. Okay, what's that? I don't know. But they were kind of warning me a little bit. I think when BERT was happening, they're like, there's these new language, generative AI, they call it generative AI. There's these new language models that are using this new technique that are advancing quickly. So I got this, and you can't read it probably, but I got this Slack from our head of product, Namit. And and the top says, create a product strategy for Namit Yadav, Coursera's VP of Product Management, that he can share at the next Product Managers Town Hall for the company's 3-year product strategy. And then you can see that little OpenAI logo, and there's 5 bullet points. This was on December 5th, and he slacked it to me. And I couldn't believe it. And I said, what information? He actually sent this, one of our engineers had written this in. I said, what information did he feed it? And he said, none. And then I was like, oh my God, there's something new that we've never seen before that has just arrived. So I immediately set up an account on OpenAI with one of my phone numbers and email addresses, and I set up another account on OpenAI with my wife's phone number, because they would time out after like whatever, 3 hours or a certain number of periods. And I just started hammering it over and over and over. And then in that January, so like the month after that, I spent all of December in our family vacation. I was just writing queries on ChatGPT. And then in Davos, when I got there, it was in January of 2023, like nobody had even heard of ChatGPT out in Switzerland. And I'm like, have you guys seen what's going on? And I was demoing it to people and everything else. And then during that week, Satya Nadella made a big announcement, and he demoed some stuff. And by the end of that, everybody was talking about generative AI. So like there's a lot of stories. ChatGPT is the talk at Davos, and it's going to kick off this arms race, and countries are now competing with each other, and it's going to totally change the way universities work, and it's going to come for your job. And there were articles about how it's going to create cheating on campuses, which it definitely has. And then there was an article about me, and it's so quaint to think about now. People are asking me, well, how are you using it? And I'm like, well, I'm using it as a thought partner and a writing assistant. And the writing assistant, the thought partner, people didn't even understand. They're like, oh, that's like whatever. Like, writing assistant, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I'm having it summarize emails, and I'm giving it some things I want to say, and I put in my own voice, and it writes emails for me, I'll edit them. And a lot of people didn't like this at all. And somebody in Forbes wrote a story that's basically like these horrible CEOs are now using some technology to help them write emails. But now, of course, it's a little bit like Google, or it's a little bit like an encyclopedia, or like a book, or like an alphabet. I mean, it's a new technology that helps us think. It helps us synthesize thought. It helps us generate new thoughts. It helps us challenge our thinking. Helps us communicate our thinking. And one of the things I've also noticed, and I think this is a big, big deal, I'm jumping around here a little bit, but the ability to reduce language barriers is a huge part of creating more equal opportunity around the world. If we could reduce language barriers with respect to learning, so that anybody can learn deep learning, generative AI, data-driven decision making, or situational leadership models for management, if the world's education and best instructors, no matter what language they speak, are available to anyone, no matter what language they speak, well, that's a much more level playing field on the learning side. And COVID really helped advance that, with online learning. But the other thing COVID really helped advance is remote work. Because if we had remote work opportunities, but not equal learning opportunities, well, then how do people get the skills to win the jobs? If we had learning opportunities, but not working opportunities that could be done from anywhere, okay, you learn stuff, but what's the real value of learning if there's no job opportunities in your community? But when you have the combination of the ability for anyone, anywhere, no matter what language they speak, to learn the most valuable skills deemed by companies in various job roles, whether that's data science or software engineering, or I don't know where's Priyank, or procurement. One of our Coursera alums is here, and he started a company doing generative AI to improve the productivity of procurement personnel. It's a real game changer. So the ability to both learn and have job opportunities, no matter where you are, no matter what language you speak, to me is a whole new chapter in kind of global economics. And people often say that AI won't replace jobs, and they'll usually fill in the blank, like AI won't replace managers, but managers using AI will replace managers who don't. And you could fill that in for a CEO. AI won't replace the CEO, maybe, hopefully, but CEOs using AI will replace CEOs who don't, or for any other role. And I think if you look at what's happening here in Silicon Valley, where we have very high wages, the ability for generative AI to create new cognitive abilities and new productivity frontiers for many, many, many different jobs, not just back office jobs, high value added jobs in product, in data science and software engineering, in design, UX, procurement, leadership. The ability for anyone in the world to get access to these cognitive tools that can up-level your abilities dramatically compared to someone who's not, could potentially favor those who move fastest. So perhaps in certain emerging economies, there's not as much infrastructure for education. Perhaps there's not as much installed or sort of available job opportunities or experience base. But if young people around the world, whether they're in Africa, India, Brazil, Colombia, or Vietnam, if they really take to these tools, a lot of leaders out there, I just saw a survey from Microsoft saying 71% of leaders said they would rather hire a less experienced person who knows generative AI than a more experienced person who does not. Now that's Microsoft and LinkedIn, and they're trying to obviously sell Copilot. But still, the productivity gains are undeniable. And I think the biggest limiting factor is no longer going to be economics. It's no longer going to be language. It's no longer going to be the availability of institutions on the ground to teach these things, because online places like Coursera can do that. It won't be available job opportunities in the area because remote work is becoming, certainly not every job, but for a lot of the most valuable jobs, a real thing. The idea that the young people of the world can move fast to take advantage of these new capabilities, these new thinking capabilities, and provide more value and more impact at lower cost than other people in the world who historically have had a lot more of the advantages, I think is a really exciting opportunity. So people often say that talent is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. And I think what they don't quite realize sometimes is like, well, what happens if opportunity is equally distributed? What happens? I mean, maybe there'll be more jobs for everybody, but more likely than not, the jobs of some people will move to be jobs of other people. And I think we might be on the verge of a global rise in equity with respect to learning equity and job equity, if we can make sure that the ability to learn how to use these new tools is equally available to everybody around the world. So I'm really excited. I'm not the only one. There's lots of people who think that this might be a breakout moment to equalize opportunity around the world. We are certainly some of them. I'll start wrapping up my comments so we can get real people building companies up here to talk about generative AI. I'm more of a generative AI optimist. I went through this process of learning about generative AI, and I thought, wow, a lot of leaders are going to need to learn this, whether you're a founder, or whether you're a CEO, or whether you're a business unit manager. So I made a course on Coursera called Navigating Generative AI, a CEO Playbook. I turned it into a broader specialization called Generative AI for Leaders. A couple professors at Harvard started taking my course. I didn't know that. And then they called me and they said, hey, there's a lot of interest from business leaders in what do you do about generative AI? Like, how do you set your strategy? How do you deal with organizational transformation? How do you navigate the risks? How do you set strategy? How do you think about which competitors you're going to be coming after? And they were taking my course and said, we'd like to make a Harvard Business School case, which they made. If it's valuable, we can send that to any of you. It basically is an inside look at what we did at Coursera in the first 6 to 12 months after December of 2022. And if it could be helpful, I'm happy to share it with you. And now the professor who wrote this, Suraj, he said it's one of the most popular cases at Harvard Business School right now, because everyone's trying to figure out like what to do about this. And so let me just say right here kind of what we're doing, and I have lots of this stuff, but we won't get to that unless people want to. But let me just sort of give a quick snapshot of what Coursera is doing with generative AI, just as an idea of how generative AI is impacting an ed tech company. And it's going to be different for a startup during procurement, or someone in the healthcare, sort of medical discovery process of trying to figure out sort of more data-driven how to find therapies that otherwise might not have been discovered. But in ed tech, we kind of divide it into two columns. The middle column there is really around what's it going to do to jobs, and how might we play a part in that. There are some people who are going to hold on to the same job, but they're going to have to learn new skills to do their current job. We call that upskilling, and we have something called Generative AI Academy. So this is a set of hundreds of courses where we have generative AI for everyone, sort of courses that teach everybody the basics of generative AI and how it might change society and some of the risks and ethical questions. And we have generative AI for leaders, which is a set of courses, obviously, for leaders to navigate generative AI. And we just launched generative AI for teams. So these are team-specific and job-specific courses that teach people who are in software engineering, like how to use generative AI to be a better software engineer, how to use generative AI to be a better data scientist. We have generative AI for marketing, and we're going to be continuing to build this out, job role by job role by job role. And we've done a lot of studies, and we've seen a lot of studies around which job roles will be most impacted. We could probably get to that if you're interested. There will also be people whose jobs are so sufficiently impacted that they need to find a new job. And so we have something called Career Academy, which is a way of learning new skills for a new career. In the teaching and learning side, generative AI is going to change the way learners learn. It's going to change the way teachers teach. So the first thing we really jumped on was machine translation of courses. Within 6 months, we translated 4,700 courses into 22 different languages, including Brazilian Portuguese. We've also done Polish, and we've done Spanish, we've done German, we've done French, and we've done Thai, and Bahasa Indonesia, and all these wonderful things. We're getting very good feedback. It used to cost us $10,000 to translate one course into one language. It now costs $10. So it's like 1,000 times, decrease in cost, and of course the speed is faster, and quality is getting better and better as well. We also have realized that generative AI can help the way people learn. So we have something called Coach, which is an interactive personalized tutor. It's available to every person in every course on Coursera. If you have questions about the course, if you want to summarize something, if you want to practice before you take a quiz, it grades your assignments, it gives you feedback. It works in multiple languages because we're using the underlying large language models of GPT-4o. We use GPT 3.5 Turbo. It's a little bit faster and cheaper, not as good. We use Gemini. On all the Google courses, Coach is powered by Gemini, not OpenAI. So we have sort of a multi-model approach, and we're moving to a multimodal approach as well, which is using text and audio and video and images. And then, not just for the learners, but for the teachers. It's going to totally change the way that people create courses. So we have something called Course Builder that is using generative AI to allow customers to build courses. We launched this in pilot last May. We just went to general release a couple months ago, and we have a super exciting roadmap of how we can help people build custom courses for their employees. And then finally, our view is that skills are changing so quickly. It's not just about learning the skills, but it's about also signaling to employers that you have these skills, with learning credentials. And to know that someone really has skills, you have to assess them. And it turns out multimodal like GPT-4o and other multimodal models are really pretty good at preventing people from cheating. Whether that's proctoring with your webcam, we do browser lockdown, but my favorite feature, where's Alexandra? I know you had a hand in this. So we have a couple of our researchers and doctors of educational, you have PhD in education?
Educational neuroscience.
PhD in educational neuroscience. That's how we roll at Coursera. And so what's really cool is you have software engineers writing code, you have product managers talking to customers, you got people like Alexandra who are scientists who understand how does the brain learn, people like Owen who are doing a lot of learner research, and we're trying to figure out how do we create the best value for our customers, especially our learners, using this technology. And I think one of my favorite examples right now on this verified learning is what we call Viva exams, where a lot of students, 56% of students admit that they cheat using ChatGPT. A lot of professors are like trying to think, oh, let's use AI to spot whether that was written with AI. And not right now, maybe in the future, I'm not so sure. But what we did is we took a little bit of a different approach, kind of led by our teaching and learning team, where we said, let's not try to evaluate whether the writing came from AI. Let's evaluate the thought process of the learner. So if any of you have gotten a PhD, and Alexandra has, I have not, but my wife did, and she had to defend her dissertation. She wrote this large body of work, she submitted it, and then she sat there and she talked to these advisors who challenged her on her methodology, challenged her on her findings, talked about further work, et cetera, et cetera. Well, Coach now jumps up after you submit a written assignment, and Coach starts interviewing you about what you just submitted. Coach knows the whole course. Coach knows all the learning objectives. Coach knows the instructions for the assignment. Coach reads your whole submission. Coach has the grading rubric and can see lots of other people's submissions. And then what it does is it talks to you about what you submitted. It says like, hey, your thesis says this. How'd you come up with that? What else did you think about? How'd you do your research? Who did you talk to? What sources did you use? How'd you verify those sources are credible? And so it basically interviews the learner to check not their output, but their thinking process. And I think that's a lot of where things are going to be going here with teaching and learning, is generative AI as a personalized tutor and even a personalized instructor who's really working not so much on your output, but on your thinking process. And that's kind of where we're heading at Coursera. So that was probably a little bit more than 10 to 15 minutes. I'll wrap there. We can certainly talk about any of this or anything else, but let me now invite up some other folks